The first crack didn't sound like ice breaking, it sounded like someone stepping onto my land. And at 6:14 a.m., with the Montana sky still bruised purple, that was enough to tell me something was wrong. I'd been shoveling snow off the narrow dirt road I'd built with my own hands 15 years ago, the same road the county forgot existed, when a white SUV rolled up slow, tires crunching like they were chewing glass. The HOA logo glittered on the door. My stomach tightened. I leaned on my shovel, steam fogging from my breath. "Morning," I said. The passenger window slid down, smooth and practiced. Inside sat Elaine Carter, HOA president, her smile thin as fishing line. "Mr. Walker," she said. "We need to talk about your overdue fees." I raised a brow. "I don't owe anything." Elaine passed me a clipboard, not gently, not aggressively, just deliberately. Like she knew this moment would hit hard. Invoice, snow removal, private road. Amount due, $2,940. Notes, service required for community accessibility. My laugh puffed white in the air. "You're charging me for snow removal? On my road?" "It's within HOA jurisdiction now," she replied. A policy update was emailed. "I built this road myself." My voice sharpened. "The county didn't touch it." "You sure as hell didn't." Elaine's smile didn't crack. "Regardless, you used it. So you benefit from the service." "What service?" "I'm literally shoveling it right now." She looked past me, scanning the woods, the cabins, the stretch of untouched snow like she was assessing a battlefield rather than a neighborhood. "Please take this seriously, Mr. Walker. Ignoring fees triggers escalation." "Escalation to what?" I asked. She didn't answer, just rolled the window up, sealing herself away like a ghost disappearing behind glass. The SUV backed up, turned, and vanished down the hill, leaving tire tracks that cut through the frost like warnings. I stared at the invoice again. Something was off, not just the charge, but the confidence behind it. As if she thought I couldn't fight back. As if she knew something I didn't. I tucked the paper into my jacket and walked up the road toward my cabin. Snowflakes drifted in slow spirals, quiet but relentless, like they were trying to bury something. Inside, the wood stove hummed low. I set the invoice on the table beside my stack of permits, actual state documents showing the road was private, legally registered, and fully maintained by me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a move. I made coffee, sat down, and reread every line. The wording wasn't sloppy, it was strategic. A policy update. Community accessibility. Service required. They were laying groundwork. For what? My dog, Ranger, lifted his head and growled at the window. His fur bristled. I stood and moved toward the glass. Across the tree line, a man in a dark jacket stood halfway hidden among the pines, watching my cabin. Not moving. Not pretending to be accidental. Just watching. The second he realized I'd spotted him, he walked deeper into the woods and disappeared. My pulse climbed. The HOA didn't have field agents. They had board members, retirees, parents, volunteers. Not guys standing in tree lines at dawn. This wasn't about snow. This was about control. I grabbed my phone and called Elaine. She answered on the second ring. "Mr. Walker? Who's on my property?" A soft pause. "I'm not sure what you mean." "There was a man watching my cabin." "I assure you," she said, voice too calm, "if someone is surveying the area, it would only be for compliance verification. Nothing more. Surveying. Compliance. Like I wasn't a homeowner, like I was a target." I exhaled slow, keeping my voice steady. "Elaine, that road is mine. I maintain it. I don't owe you a cent." "Then you'll dispute the charge." "In writing." Her tone sharpened, clipped, and rehearsed. "But if you choose not to pay, the board will proceed accordingly." "And what does accordingly mean?" Another pause, longer this time. "You don't want to find out." The call ended. Ranger growled again. I stepped outside, boots sinking into the fresh powder, eyes scanning the woods, the slope, the place where the man had stood. Nothing moved. Only the wind brushed the branches. But the feeling didn't fade, that pressure in the air, like the forest itself was holding its breath. I walked back to the road, running my glove across the rough frozen dirt I'd poured, leveled, and repaired every year. I'd driven every inch. I knew every ditch, every bend. This road was mine legally, physically, historically. So why was the HOA suddenly trying to claim it? And why now? Snowflakes landed softly on the abandoned tire tracks left by Elaine's SUV, slowly erasing them. If they were trying to intimidate me, they'd started too early. Because now I wasn't backing down, I was digging in. And whatever they were hiding, I was going to find it. By noon, the snow stopped, but the unease didn't. I kept replaying the morning in my head, the invoice, the man in the trees, Elaine's thin smile. None of it lined up with a simple HOA fee dispute. So I drove down to the HOA office, a remodeled ranch house near the center of the development. Clean blue siding, neat porch, American flag out front. It looked harmless. Designed to look harmless. But the parking lot held a surprise. A work truck, white, unmarked, sat by the side gate. Its tires were caked with the same dirt mixture my private road used after last summer's gravel refill. That exact mix. That exact color. Someone had been on my road recently. Someone other than me. Inside, a young receptionist gave me a practiced smile. "Good afternoon. How can I help?" "I'm here about an invoice." I placed the paper on the counter. Her smile flickered, then snapped back. "One moment." She stepped into a back room. Behind her desk sat a corkboard covered with printed maps, property lines, utility routes, snowplow paths. Most were normal. But one map caught my eye, a highlighted section cutting through my land, straight through my private road, and continuing past it. A planned extension. My heartbeat spiked. When she returned, she was followed by Tom Keller, HOA vice president. Gray beard, red flannel, handshake always just a little too firm. "Walker," Tom said. "Didn't expect you." "Yeah," I replied. "Funny how that works." He gestured toward a small meeting room. "Let's talk." Inside, Tom closed the door but didn't sit. His jaw worked like he was chewing words before speaking them. "This invoice caught me off guard," I said, keeping calm. "Your plow never touched my road. You know that." Tom didn't argue. Which was already suspicious. "Look, things are shifting around here," he said. "New regulations. Updated jurisdiction. On my property? It's complicated." "Explain it," I demanded. He hesitated, a real hesitation this time, not the political kind. The type that meant he was choosing between truth and consequences. Then he finally muttered, "We're under pressure too." "From who?" He opened his mouth, closed it again, and shook his head. "I can't say. Just pay the fee for now. It'll keep everything calm." Calm? There was nothing calm about any of this. "Who was the guy on my land this morning?" I asked. Tom stiffened. "Barely. But he did." "You're imagining things," he said. "Try again." He didn't answer, he just reached for the door. "That's all I can do for you, Walker. Let it go." I stepped in front of him. "If you're planning something involving my land, I need to know." "We're not planning anything." The lie was so clean I almost admired it. Tom exited, leaving me alone in the small room. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I returned to the lobby, acting like I'd forgotten my gloves, then casually drifted back toward the corkboard. No one looked up. I snapped a picture of the highlighted map and slid my phone into my pocket. A development plan. Cutting through my land. Extending beyond it. Why? Back in my truck, I opened the photo and zoomed in. The map wasn't labeled road expansion. It was labeled Utility Corridor Project Winterline. Utility Corridor. My private road wasn't being serviced. It was being scouted. This wasn't about snow removal. This was about access. My pulse kicked harder. A corridor like this meant either pipelines, fiber, or something bigger, something federal or corporate. Something that needed land and didn't want to pay fair market value. Or ask permission. I drove straight to the county records office. Inside, the clerk pulled up my parcel, clicked through files, then frowned. "Ha! What?" I asked. "There was a viewing logged this week. A request to inspect your land use status." "By who?" He turned the monitor so I could see. "Requester, Winterline Holdings LLC. Requested access, full property boundary review. Status, approved." Approved. Without my consent. My voice dropped. "Did someone authorize that?" He nodded. "HOA representative signed for it." Cold anger moved through my chest. The kind that makes your hands steady instead of shaking. "They have no right," I said. "Sir, once an HOA claims community easement, they can authorize certain inspections. But they don't have an easement on my land." "You might want to double-check that," he said quietly. I stepped back. "What does that mean?" He pointed at a line item I hadn't seen earlier. "A newly added document. Filed 3 days ago. Easement claim pending review. Filed by Silver Pines HOA Board. Claim type, access for maintenance plus emergency services. Affected area, private road, parcel 19B. Parcel 19B. My road. My land. They were trying to steal it. And they were doing it quietly, bureaucratically, layer by layer, hoping I wouldn't notice until it was too late. I left the office with the printout burning hot in my pocket. The sky had darkened again, not from weather, but from the kind of heavy cloud cover that made the whole world feel dimmer. When I reached my truck, there was something stuck under the windshield wiper. At first I thought it was junk mail. But it wasn't. It was a photo. A photo of me, taken that morning. Shoveling my road. On the back, in neat handwriting. "Stop digging." Ranger wasn't with me, but I could almost hear him growling. Someone didn't want me asking questions. Which meant it was time to ask bigger ones. The storm wasn't outside anymore. It was inside the community. And it was coming fast. By the time I reached the community hall, word had already spread. Cars lined the long gravel lot, headlights cutting through the snow-heavy air. People stood in clusters beneath the lampposts, whispering, shivering, watching me pull in like they already knew something was about to break open. Inside, the hall was packed. Chairs filled. Voices layered. Tension hanging like static. At the center, behind a folding table stacked with neatly arranged papers, sat Elaine Carter, posture stiff, hair perfect, eyes darting across the room like she was counting enemies. To her left, 2 board members. To her right, a man I didn't recognize. Suit, gloves, black coat. Corporate. Not local. I felt Ranger tense beside me. I agreed with him. Elaine tapped the microphone. "Let's bring this meeting to order." The room quieted, but only on the surface. Underneath, everybody buzzed with suspicion. People had seen the easement notice. The invoice. The mysterious survey crew trucks. Property lines were personal here, more personal than religion, more personal than politics. Elaine cleared her throat. "The agenda today." I stepped forward. "No." One word. Loud. Sharp. Effective. Heads turned. Murmurs rippled. "This meeting isn't starting until we talk about this." I held up the photo, the one I found on my truck that morning. The photo of me shoveling my own road. Gasps flickered through the room. Elaine exhaled through her nose. Mr. Walker, if you'll take your seat. Someone has been on my property. Watching me. Threatening me. I turned to the crowd. Because the HOA filed a fake easement claim on my land. Now the room erupted, voices rising, chairs scraping, people demanding answers. Elaine's smile had vanished. Her mask cracked. You're misrepresenting documents you don't understand. I held up the printed record from the county office. Then maybe the county doesn't understand either. I dropped the document onto the table in front of her. It slapped down like a judge's gavel. The black-coated stranger leaned forward, whispering in her ear. Her eyes widened, just barely, and it was the first honest emotion she'd shown all night. I pressed. Tell everyone who this man is. Elaine froze. A woman in the crowd shouted, Yeah, who is he? Another, Is he the guy surveying my backyard last week? Another, I saw him near the ridge, what's going on? The man in the coat finally spoke. Calm. Low. Cold. This matter is above the scope of this meeting. I stepped closer. Funny. Because my private road is the reason you're all here. He stared at me, no emotion, no blinking, no humanity. Your property is part of a pending infrastructure assessment. Nothing more. That's a lie, I said, producing my phone. Because I took this from the HOA office. I cast the image of the map onto the projector screen. The room went silent. Highlighted corridor. My land. And the words. Project Winterline, Phase 1. The board members paled. Neighbors gasped. Someone whispered, What the hell is Winterline? Elaine stood, microphone trembling in her hand. Everyone calmed down. A loud voice boomed from the back, You tried to steal his road. Another, You forged documents. Another, Who are you working for? The hall devolved into an explosive storm of anger and panic. People stood, shouted, pointed, demanded explanations. I slammed my hand on the table. Winterline isn't a snow removal project. It's a land grab. The man in the coat stepped toward me. You're making dangerous assumptions. So clarify them, I said. Right now. In front of everyone. Elaine shook her head violently. Stop. Please. But it was too late. The crowd surged forward, shouting for answers. The coat man reached into his jacket fast. Too fast. Ranger barked, lunging with a snarl that ricocheted off the walls. I shoved forward, grabbing his wrist as he pulled out. Not a weapon. A device. A small black remote. Single button. Blinking red. What is that? Someone screamed. Elaine shrieked, Don't! Not here! He hissed at her, You were warned. He clicked it. The lights died. The entire hall went black, gasps, panic, chairs crashing, people stumbling. Ranger growled, teeth snapping the air. I shoved the man back, feeling shape rather than seeing it. His coat brushed my hand. Then he bolted, footsteps pounding toward the exit. Emergency lights flickered on. Chaos revealed itself. People shouting. Board members backing away in terror. Tom Keller holding a flashlight, sweat streaming down his face. Elaine stood frozen, staring at the door where the man had fled, mouth quivering like she already knew she'd crossed a point of no return. I didn't waste a second. I ran outside. The cold slapped me. Snow whipped through the beams of the lamppost. The man sprinted across the lot toward a black SUV. Engine already running. Driver waiting. I shouted, Stop. He didn't. He dove inside the vehicle. The SUV roared to life and tore out of the lot, tires throwing slush into the air, red taillights warping into the snowstorm as it vanished down the dark road. I stood there, breath burning in my chest. They weren't just surveying. They weren't just stealing land. They had an operation. A plan. A timeline. And Elaine. Elaine knew more than she had ever admitted.
When I went back inside, everyone stared at her like she wasn't the president anymore, she was evidence. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I didn't have a choice."
I looked her dead in the eyes. You did. And the whole room knew it. Tonight wasn't the end. It was the crack in the dam.
The real flood was coming. By the time the sheriff's cruisers rolled out and the HOA's emergency meeting adjourned, the sky over Silver Pines looked washed out, like the storm had taken something with it. The air felt lighter, but the ground underneath, not so much. Neighbors gathered in small clusters outside the community hall, whispering, glancing at me, at Tom, at the absence of Elaine. She'd been escorted away in the back seat of a patrol car after her meltdown, shouting about orders and Winterline's deadlines and how none of this was supposed to fall on her. Her downfall had been public, loud, and messy. Exactly what she'd feared most. Tom stood on the porch rails, silent, hands in his pockets. His red flannel looked dull under the porch lights. I approached. "You going to tell me how deep this goes?" I asked quietly. He sighed a long, tired breath, like he'd been carrying something for years. "Walker, what you saw tonight wasn't the whole board. Just Elaine. She took money. Promised land access she couldn't legally give. Winterline pushed, she caved. And the rest of you?" I asked. "We weren't told everything." His eyes flicked away, guilt creeping in. "We knew there was pressure. We didn't know it involved your property. Or surveillance. Or threats. I thought of the man in the trees. The photo on my windshield. The easement claim filed in silence. They knew more than they said. But not enough to stop it." The sheriff's pushing charges, Tom continued. Fraud. Coercion. Forgery. She forged the easement paperwork. My jaw tightened. And Winterline? That's the part no one can get answers on. He lowered his voice. The company disconnected all contacts. Offices empty. Phones dead. It's like they vanished. Companies don't just vanish. Not ones with that kind of money. Before I could press him further, Sheriff Daniels stepped out of the building. "Walker," he said. "Mind walking with me a minute?" We crossed the lot, snow crunching under our boots. Ranger trotted beside me, tail low, ears sharp. Daniels stopped beside his cruiser. "You did the right thing tonight. If you hadn't exposed the documents, half this neighborhood would have been signing rights away without even realizing it." "They still might," I said. "Winterline doesn't seem like a company that gives up. That's why I need you to be careful." He looked at me not as a sheriff, but as someone who knew how these stories usually ended. "There's no record of Winterline Holdings before 8 months ago. No board members. No address. The LLC registration traces back to a shell firm in Nevada. Meaning? Meaning someone created it for one reason, to acquire land quietly." He lowered his voice. "Your road was step one." My stomach nodded. "Daniels," I said, "someone was on my property days before Elaine made anything official. Someone watching me. Watching the cabin." "I know," he replied. "And until we know who they are, you keep your rifle loaded, your dog close, and your phone charged." He clasped my shoulder once, firmly, then left. His cruiser pulled out of the lot and disappeared into the dark. The meeting was over. The danger wasn't. Ranger and I walked home under the cold glow of moonlight. The forest looked different now, the same pines, the same snow, but a new pressure in the silence. Like the land itself knew someone else wanted it. Inside the cabin, I hung my coat, fed Ranger, and sat at the table. The evidence pile lay scattered: invoices, forged signatures, maps. All closed cases now, supposedly. But one thing kept buzzing in my mind. The corridor. Project Winterline wasn't written on any of the documents Elaine forged. It was on the internal map I photographed at the HOA office, a map that didn't belong to Elaine. Or Tom.
Or the local board. That meant Winterline had given it to them.
Which meant the plan wasn't stopped. We'd only exposed one piece. I opened the map photo again, zooming past the highlighted section.
Past my land.
Past the forested ridge. The yellow line continued miles farther, ending at a blank zone labeled Phase 2 restricted.
Restricted. Not HOA. Not county. Something else.
A shiver ran through me.
Ranger lifted his head, ears twitching.
A low growl built in his chest.
Knock. Not hard. Not frantic.
Just deliberate.
3 taps on the door.
I rose slowly, hand drifting toward the rifle leaning by the wall. Ranger stood rigid, teeth bared but silent.
Another knock, same rhythm. I checked the window. Nothing. Only darkness. The vast quiet of Montana winter. Who's there? I called. No answer. Just cold air pressing against the door. I unlatched it carefully and opened it an inch.
The porch was empty.
No footprints in the snow.
But something lay on the wooden step.
A single envelope. Inside, on heavy paper, typed with precision. Project Winterline will continue. Your interference is noted. Phase 2 begins March 1st. No signature. No logo. Just a small embossed emblem at the bottom, one I hadn't seen before. A circle. A mountain silhouette. And a single word. Overlook. Ranger barked at the trees, furious and afraid. I stepped back inside and locked the door. Elaine was gone.
The board was shaken.
But the real threat hadn't even started yet.
I turned off the lights and stood in the dark, staring out toward the woods.
If they wanted my land, they'd have to come for it themselves. And I'd be ready.